This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Hope you're all having a great weekend, getting your June started off correctly. We appreciate you spending part of your weekend listening to us here at KC Sports Network for this new episode of 10 Things. I'm BJ Kissel, hanging out with Tucker Franklin. Tucker, it has been a minute, buddy, since you and I have podcasted together. I feel like I haven't seen or talked to you in a little bit, too, at least not through text message.
I know, it's been a minute, but look, this is like almost the old Outside the Trenches days when, Nick would be on the road. Nick couldn't join us, and we would have to do a podcast, usually late at night. But no, it's been great. Glad to have you back on a podcast. I'm sure people will be excited to hear you on a podcast. But it's been a minute since you've been on. Probably since the
few minutes. Consistently, yeah. I jumped in at the draft a few times when the guys needed a break because they needed a break because they couldn't stream for 18 hours in like 4 days. So
yeah, it's true.
Soft. Can't just soft.
Right.
But no, it's been good. I've followed everything. There's a ton of stuff. I mean, obviously, most everybody else doesn't until stuff's done, but there's a ton of stuff going on behind the scenes. So I spend more of my time now doing the behind the scenes stuff, which is great. We've got some really cool big things. They tend to take a little bit longer. Some really cool integrations and activations with our partners and some stuff we have coming up. I think people will be excited about getting the content lineup set up for training camp and through the regular season. And honestly, like just spending a lot of time with my kid coaching, coaching my kids' softball and baseball teams. So that keeps me busy. And then my mom, had a new hip installed a couple weeks ago. So my sister and I have been out taking care of her out in Stillwell. So spent a couple weeks out there during the day, just helping her out. But no, it's good. I'm excited to talk about kind of the 10 things that are standing out to me so far throughout, OTAs and kind of the storylines that we're all following. It's kind of a refresher on here, the 10 things that we're following. I'm curious to get your thoughts. I know you're on a lot of these shows. You're hearing everybody's takes on everything. And from almost an outsider's perspective for me at this point, these are just the 10 things that I'm most looking forward to following, at least through the next couple of weeks until mandatory minicamp is done. And then obviously during the deadest part of the year, during that 7-week break between mandatory minicamp and the start of training camp.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of storylines. The Chiefs have given us a lot to talk about in this little dead period here, for better or for worse. But lots of stuff going on. Excited to talk to you about all these 10 storylines.
Let's start with the first one. It's one of the most obvious. People are probably sick of hearing about it, and I can't say I'm sick of talking about it because I haven't really talked about it on camera at all. But the Rashee Rice stuff, and just figure out what's the length of the suspension going to be. I've heard so many different takes or seen so many different takes from national media. I know a lot of people, they're just kind of shooting from the hip. They don't really know what it's going to be. My thing from the beginning is Rashee Rice is incredibly lucky that no one was seriously injured, or this would be looked at in a completely different way. We wouldn't be talking about him ever playing football again. And I think that part gets lost for some. And talking about, this isn't as bad as such and such. Like, he's very close to Henry Ruggs. I mean, not to throw it out there, but like, it's very lucky that somebody wasn't seriously injured or even died in something like this. So that aside from the Chiefs' perspective and the football perspective, Tucker, it could be anywhere from 8 games of a suspension to more. But I want to get your thoughts because I don't know if any of the guys have talked about that. I've seen it a few places that the NFL, obviously, they want the legal part to take place first, but
right.
The NFL wants to do right by the families that are seeking compensation for what they've had to deal with, and they should. But if he's suspended for the entire year, he can't make any money, so he can't pay anybody anything. And it's not a reason to not suspend somebody, but there is a very real, the families want money. He has to give them money. If they suspend him, he can't get paid, right? Or am I wrong on this? That's a layer to it that is just interesting and it adds another dynamic to how do you do right by everybody in this situation with a obvious consequence that's needed.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really thought about that, truthfully. That's interesting. Nate Taylor speculated, and Nate was very adamant on Only Weird Games that he is getting suspended this year. I know that was tossed around a little bit, that like it's possible that he can be suspended, once the legal process plays out. That could be actually next year. But he was like, no, it's going to happen this year. The Chiefs, it's been reported several places that they expect a multi-game suspension. Now, the definition of multi-game is just like more than one, I guess. So like, I think it's 4 to 8 is what people are kind of anticipating as between a 4 to 8 game suspension. Look, and also the NFL kind of has a problem with this, right? You mentioned Henry Ruggs, like it's a little bit of a problem. So I think that the NFL is going to try to probably make a little bit of a statement here when it comes to just trying to nip this in the bud with street racing and everything like that. But they could choose to make an example out of Rashee Rice. I'm sure his other incident is going to come into play, even though there wasn't any legal charges that came from it yet so far.
Yeah,
it's probably
hearsay.
Play. Right.
Yeah, unless there's video, it's just he said he did this, he said, and then everybody's going to take their sides on something we have no idea. Like, we weren't there, and you're vouching for somebody that you don't know, and none of us do. Like, we want to believe the best, but then all the stuff comes out about college, and then everybody digs into everything to add another layer to the story during a slow time of the year, and they start digging for stuff, and then the worst thing he's ever did, people get paid to come out and start talking about it. Like, it becomes a mess. At that point, you don't know. All I know is if you screw up and you do something really serious and bad, probably shouldn't be out at the clubs at 2 o'clock in the morning, regardless of whether you did anything or not. Right. Just play low for a little bit. But, it's easy for us to say on the outside. We don't know the circumstances of everything. What I can say, moving on to number 2, because they bleed together, I could assume from the Chiefs PR department, they really don't want to get any more phone calls. Because now we got Isaiah Buggs. And all of this, like, it has just been an absolute nightmare from a PR standpoint, individually for the Chiefs players and some of the things that these guys had to answer for. And they just keep one-upping each other, or just somebody else keeps doing something. So they have 7 weeks between the end of June and training camp. And now it's like every day or every other day. So I saw a Twitter account, Tucker said, like, how many days since the Chiefs embarrassing PR thing? And it's not great. I feel like the entire Chiefs PR department just needs like a vacation.
They need a vacation and a raise because they've had to deal with a whole lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I think Brett Coleman tweeted when I saw that this Isaiah Buggs incident had happened, like they almost went 2 weeks without making a headline. Almost went 2 weeks. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but I had also tweeted out like, look, the 30 for 30 on the three-peat's going to be insane when they get to this part about covering the offseason. Like, this is going to be an incredible part of the 30 for 30, of all of the off-field incidents that have happened legally and otherwise just going on with this team. It's crazy that they've been able to kind of hold it together.
And, yeah, I can't. The rumors that my sister and like other people pay attention to like the Taylor Swift stuff. Like, are they going to get engaged? That's the only thing that the Chiefs PR says. Like, please get engaged. Please get engaged.
They're calling Travis every day. How close are we?
Please change it. Just announce it. Leak some pictures from Italy. Like, put a rumor out there. Do something. I like people asking me like, did you see this rumor? I'm like, no, I don't pay attention to that stuff at all. But now that I'm thinking about it, like, it'd be a good time for some positive stuff to come out there like that. But yeah, so crazy again with Patrick Mahomes and all the stuff that Brittany's got going on, and like their stardom just soaring, and seeing them at the Mavs game, the playoff game, and then obviously Travis and all that stuff. It's just awesome time to be a part of it. And it sucks that these things, small things and things just keep happening to kind of take away from that. But yeah, no more rest, no more what the moments. Sorry, I'm not going to cuss right now. Time for that. It's off-season. Yeah. So let's move on to the next one. And this is one I'm curious to get your thoughts. I know a lot of people have been talking about this particular player lately, and I would love to eat my words because everybody gets excited about players and situations like this. And because I was like, listen, there's a huge transition to transfer and not play American football and then come over. But Louis Rees-Zammit, based on what Dave Tobin said, being on the first team, like basically gave him a roster spot, and that opens your eyes because at training camp, the one thing you know is when you ask Dave Tobe, like, who are those guys really impressing you? That's when he's going to start naming names of guys that you didn't necessarily know could be counted on for the 53-man roster. And he's done it pretty early with the rugby star.
It's interesting. When they initially signed him, they put him at wide receiver / running back. I think that was rumored when he was trying to make the transition. The Chiefs, when they did sign him, put him at running back. I think that's the right position for him to be at. Look, the hype train's fully left the station on old Lewis, because Nate Taylor, very big fan of him and just like the way that he presents himself, everything that. Also very handsome. That helps. In terms of he's got just general charm, is what Nate says when he comes to talking to him. But I know I shared your concern with Lewis a little bit. It looks like sometimes when he's turning, he's got ice skates on. So, I mean, there's a couple things that just don't translate from rugby over to American football. They are two different sports, right? So like, I wanted to temper expectations, but then you get out here and you hear Dave Tobe saying like, yeah, we've had him in the return game. We've also had him doing kickoffs too. And that was one aspect where I was like, oh yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense to do because there's kicking in rugby. They do a little bit more line drive kicks. That might make a little bit more sense logistically on how to use them.
Accuracy.
Way than one. Yeah. That's something I didn't even
kick it where you want to. But the part for me is once the pads come on, it's not that the lack of physicality. It's not the put an NBA player in the NFL and have the physicality. I know he plays rugby. It's not, you know, I mean, no coward stepping between the white lines with those guys. Like even in the college, like that's not a thing. But carrying the ball and getting hit and not fumbling it for a guy that you want to play offense is different. You're playing safety, just run and hit him and tackle him. I just get a guy to carry the football with other grown men that are stronger and going for the balls and been doing this for a really long time. So it's the ball security stuff for me. How much are you going to have this guy hold the ball? Now, if he's a four-core special teams guy, that's just going to be a glorified H-back, kind of one of those, not Michael Burr, they had the fullback kind of positioning to have something for him, the way they use Noah Gray, maybe a little bit too, outside of the tight end stuff. Like, yeah, that makes sense. It's the ball security stuff for me. But either way, you know that fans are excited about it. Because I know when Haley talked about him the other day on Chiefs News Daily, those videos, like with fire, like one of those, like we were talking about it, the Instagram video, like 200,000 views. People are excited about this dude. And like you say, being well-spoken, being a good-looking dude. I think I saw him going around Kansas City with like his swimsuit model girlfriend or something.
He's at Worlds of Fun, man.
People gotta know who he is.
Living his life at Worlds of Fun.
That's awesome. Like, listen, you got anytime you go to the ZMB Zinger, you got to go. They brought it back. It's a big deal. You got to get out there and have a good time. Speaking, unpaid shout out for anybody who's thinking about running a 5K. So, Worlds of Fun tomorrow morning. Actually, when you're listening to this podcast, they will already have been finished. So I don't know why I'm setting this up to promote it. But head out to Worlds of Fun. They're doing a 5K. And so my wife, who did a half marathon last weekend in Manhattan, and I was in charge of the kids all weekend. I did not run. But I was in charge of watching the kids all weekend. And my son thought it was so cool watching everybody finish the race and everybody was there and everybody was like celebrating him that he said he wanted to do a race. So they signed up for a 5K like 20 minutes after the half marathon for this Saturday. It's at Worlds of Fun. They found one that was in Kansas City. So my son and my wife will be at the 5K at Worlds of Fun on Saturday morning while I'm getting ready for a softball game with my daughter. Big softball game at 10:30. Big 7U softball game, machine pitch. Come out, Todd. It's huge. Out. We should film it and do like a little sizzle video. Like I want a really high production video of like 7-year-old softball
machine pitch.
Yeah, just it would be so awesome. The girls would absolutely love it. Play a little Taylor Swift. They'll start dancing the whole time.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, they're all Swifties. It's a thing. At practice, when they're not paying attention, we just play Taylor Swift and they all start dancing and have a great time.
So I have to do.
All right, let's move on to number 4. And again, these are the 10 storylines we're kind of following are jumping out to us right now. And this one I know you've got some takes on. You guys have been talking about quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think it's really, no one knows what the kickoff rules, how the different strategies. And I think that's probably the most exciting part of it is different teams are going to have different takes on it. And we heard Dave Tobe this week talk about kind of his strategy and what he's thinking and what he thinks people are going to do in terms of the kickoff and the different rules about what they can do and whether or not Harrison Butker is even most valuable out there. They don't want him out there tackling.
Right.
People wanted to use that as a reason because of all the other stuff with Butker to bring it up and dunk on. Your kicker shouldn't be making tackles. I don't care who he is. He's got to make field goals when it counts from 50 yards. The guy doesn't need a tackle. So having a player like Justin Reed that can go out there and hit and kick it would be obviously huge. But what are you most looking forward to seeing about how the new kicking rules play out?
What I'm really excited about is I think that the research committee or the rules committee said this could add 1,600 more plays to a football game. So like you're going to get so many more plays in a football game that are like legit football. Like you're going to need to be in your seat. You can't be out getting a beer. You can't be all around. But that's going to add another.
Hold on. You said 1,600 more plays per game.
I meant per year.
I'm just. Somebody out there right now is listening like, that doesn't make sense. I think he meant it. And I'm like, I'm going to interrupt him.
No, that's true. 1,600 plays per
year. Make sure that we're good.
Per year.
Okay. I knew I missed some stuff. I didn't know if I missed that.
No, that would be a lot of plays in a football game. Like sometimes they barely run 100.
They'd be dead. They'd be dead. Like they're crawling on the field.
Yeah, it's just the kickoff is actually you just have to do it until you return for a touchdown. But I think that there's a lot of things that you can do and figure out with this kickoff rule. And there's something different with this rule, the XFL rule that came out that I thought was interesting in Dave Tobe's press conference that he mentioned. In XFL, you wouldn't be able to move, like the front line wouldn't be able to move until the returner touched the ball. So that means you could kick it away from him and it could hit the ground, but that line could not move until the returner touched the ball. For the NFL rule, the ball, when it hits the turf or the receiver touches it, you can move. So a big emphasis, is what seemed like what Dave Tobe was going to be talking about, would be directional kicking and kicking it away from the returner or away from some of these guys, make them have to run and go get it, so then have to change direction, everything like that, or just hit it where they're not, basically. You know, the old baseball term, hit it where they ain't. You just get kick the ball where they're not, and you just go to try to get it. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how teams adapt to this. I think it can be really exciting. I'm super excited for it, truthfully, because it's just something new, and I know people don't like change, so people might not like it at first, but I think it's going to be, once we get into like midway through the season, you're not going to notice a difference. You're going to actually have more fun watching kickoffs instead of it being just a ceremonial play.
And that's the thing for me, is it's been a ceremonial play. I don't know how people can be against it as if they really like the current setup of kickoffs. If it works in your favor, you're going to like it. And if you get burned from it because your special teams coach can't adapt or isn't very good at it, that fan base is going to complain about the rule because it doesn't benefit them.
Right. Yeah.
We know that's going to happen. I'm pretty confident that Dave Tobe is good at this. And he's literally building it around and bringing in guys, and they think outside the box with this kind of stuff. So players like Louis Rees-Zammit could have some more value. And obviously Justin Reed becomes significantly more valuable.
Oh, yeah.
And to that point that I've seen out there, it doesn't make Harrison Butker any less valuable.
Look, Justin Reed's not going to hit a 56-yarder to win a football game, right? Like Harrison Butker will do that. And like if
he's one of the best kickers in NFL history. Right. And we need to start looking at it like that, regardless of how you feel about everything else. Everybody's got their opinions. And I think Travis, Pat, Church, Coach, everybody said it best. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. And that is some more positive stuff. And that is Hollywood Brown. It's kind of gotten lost just because there's been so much that's gone on that you forget that the Chiefs brought in a player that could very easily bring a dimension back to this offense that we haven't seen over the last couple of years. Didn't mean they weren't successful. They're going to be successful. They can dink and dunk. They can throw it all over the field. They can attack intermediate. They can beat you in a lot of different ways. And I think Hollywood Brown and what he could do skill set wise brings an element back to this offense that Chiefs fans have been kind of not complaining about, but we got entitled to with Tyreek in the early part of Mahomes, just chucking it all over. 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. I can see a lot more explosive plays with Hollywood Brown. He's going to bring some more of that excitement back to the Chiefs and some of those highlight reel type deep throws that the rest of the NFL seems to need to be reminded that Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback, and it's not particularly close with what he's been able to do compared to any other great quarterback in the league right now. He is different, and I think the highlight reel plays are what get a lot of other people. They want those 30-second clips to be like, okay, he is the best, as opposed to the rest of us who watch him just completely dissect people when he needs to, or take top off the defense when he needs to. Like, he'll beat you however he needs to.
I think the big thing about the Hollywood Brown edition is it brings respect back to the deep ball, right? Like the Chiefs didn't have a guy last year, really even the year before, really since Tyreek had been gone, or they have to, where the defense has to say, okay, we got to put a guy back here. We gotta make sure that we don't give up the deep ball. MVS was supposed to do that, didn't really happen.
I was gonna say Justin Watson became the guy who's like, if they're gonna throw it deep, he's probably gonna catch it. Nothing against Justin Watson has been a solid. He's been exactly what the Chiefs have needed him to be his entire time he's been here. Everybody has, except for the guy that you just mentioned. He was the one guy that didn't do what he was needed to do consistently, but when it mattered, he did exactly what he could have been doing the whole time, and he'd be seen a lot differently than he is. But he got paid, he got rings. Can't hate on it for that. But yeah, Hollywood Brown, that's going to be the one, especially going into training camp.
Yeah.
When we're up there covering it, going to have a lot of fun. One-on-ones, the 7-on-7 stuff, like that's where it's gonna be fun with this group. One of the other guys that you and I talked about before we started recording as we move on to the next one here. Actually, before we move on to the next one, I think you have something you need to share.
Oh yeah, I got to tell you about our friends at PXG. Look, you guys know that we have been acquaintances with PXG for a while now, and I love the folks over at the PXG location in Overland Park. And as a golfer for years, I've been hearing the PXG motto, nobody makes clubs the way we do, period. And you know what? They are right. I went in and I got to swing the PXG Black Ops driver, and it was a total game changer for my game. Alex helped me out. We narrowed my disparity up. We added about 50 yards of distance. It was one of those things where the technology really showed through, and the world-class team of PXG experts analyzed every aspect of how I swing with every club, too. She was helping me with my irons a little bit as well, and in real time, and taught me how to improve. Alex is the best at this. She's incredible, so make sure you go over there. You're talking to Alex when you get in there. Marcus, the whole team over there, truthfully, for fittings, are the best, but I just got to sit down with Alex for a while. We just got to talk golf, got to talk shop, and it's incredible. And if you're thinking PXG's high-performance equipment is too expensive, their clubs often cost less than the so-called leading brands. PXG made me a believer. They'll do the same for every golfer in Kansas City. Visit pxg.com/10things to schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City. That's at 7517 West 119th Street in Overland Park. Get fitted for any club, and you'll get a dozen golf balls free. That's pxg.com/10things to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/10things. Limit 1 dozen golf balls per person. Promotion ends June 30th. Other terms and conditions apply. See the store for details. BJ, let's take a break, and we'll continue in after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com. I want to tag that coming out real quick. I know we just got done with some other ads, but the folks over at PXG, obviously they're a sponsor. They've been a partner for us, but I've stopped by the PXG stores to hang out with Alex, Marcus, Jacob. Like, they're phenomenal people to get together. I had never done a fitting. I did my fitting a few months ago now with Alex, and it's a phenomenal experience. Whether you're a serious golfer or not, it really is a great place to go. And learn about your game. You do the fitting and you can learn more about your game, whether you buy the clubs there or not. Going through the process of a fitting and learning what your swing is and what type of club shaft you need, what kind of flexion you need in it, what kind of club head weight you need, stuff that I've never paid attention because it was always like, I'm not good enough for it to like matter. And then you go swing 10 times and they say, okay, now put this on because you swing this way and you keep missing this way. And it's like, oh my God.
And it fixes it.
I'm sure it's fitting anywhere. But like, they're phenomenal people over there, so couldn't speak more highly of the folks over at PXG. But let's get back into this. One of the guys that I know has been talked about a little bit going into the season because it was kind of a redshirt year for him last year, talking Felix Anudike-Uzama.
Yeah.
As Charles Lemon, who's coming back from that injury, and he's not 100%, and you followed him on social media, he's putting videos out, which is always awesome to see when they share that stuff, to see that he's kind of working his way back. You know, he's motivated to come back, put up a big year, and try to get another contract because he had just signed a shorter deal for himself for the age that he is. He's trying to get another big deal.
Yeah.
And so as a man who is working his way back, it's a big opportunity to get these off-season reps for FAU, wherever he's repping, whether it's ones, twos, wherever it's at. He's moving up as Charles Lemon, who's out. So this is kind of his time. He's been here for an entire season. He now has an entire off-season, a summer, again, to get ready to play football, as opposed to get ready to, exercise really well in front of teams, getting ready for the combine and pro days and all those kinds of things. Now he understands what the expectation is. He's seen it at the highest level. He's got the information, and now it's what do you do with the information you have of what it takes to be great? And can you put that together? So you won't know till the pads come on, but at least from a mental standpoint, understanding the defense, understanding what's expected of him, this is a big opportunity for FAU.
Absolutely. Made a big play in the Super Bowl, too. I think that that's going to be really key for the confidence. Confidence is going to be a big part of it. But looking at the Chiefs' just defensive end room right now, the addition of Mike Dana, or the retention, I should say, of Mike Dana makes it a lot bigger. Like that was huge for them because you're starting to look at, okay, Charles Minihew's probably going to be out for a few, let's call it a couple months, right? Let's be conservative on that, just with the ACL recovery and everything like that. Then you're looking at, if you don't retain Mike Dana, Felix has to be your starting end. And then that starts to be a little tough for a guy in a second year. Malik Herring is the other end behind George Karlaftis. So, I mean, their room is a little thin, but I think if Felix Anudike can step up and can kind of grow into this second year jump a little bit in this sophomore season, you feel a little bit better about this depth moving forward. And it's going to be really big, especially with these years on Mahomes' contract. They can always do like some finagling with it, but like still going to have some bigger cap hits. To have young guys at key positions that need depth, like to have young guys there on rookie contracts is going to be huge.
Yeah, I think I don't have the information in front of me. This is something he's getting ready closer to training camp, and you go through training camp battles. It's a better time to go back through this information. We'll go back through and you can look and see, how many snaps with two defensive ends. Because you could say, depending upon the situation, Chris Jones, you have two defensive linemen.
Right.
Chris Jones can slide out in a passing situation. We saw Chris Jones for about 4 games.
Absolutely.
Play defensive end, and he's not a guy who's going to play out there consistently.
Yeah.
So Felix, yes, but what does being a starting end look like in terms of actual snaps played compared to just looking at a depth chart and saying, okay, he plug him in here. How many snaps does that actually look like? Because Dana can slide in and out and do different things depending upon the look and how many situations you get where you want certain personnel packages. And so that's what, to me, when you say starter, you think huge role. I think, can he mix in and just be one of those guys that goes in with Malik Herring, Karlaftis, Dana, Chris Jones, and one of the other guys I'm going to talk about here in a minute, who's one of my most intriguing players that I want to see as we get closer to training camp. It's pads when it come on. Although this guy's going to look phenomenal in shorts because we know that we saw him up close at the Shrine Bowl 2 years ago. Before we get to my namesake, let's talk a little Justin Ross. It took you a second, didn't it?
It did take me a second. That was a slow burn on that.
It's not my son. It's not Carter. It's not my son, Carter.
I figured it out.
Yeah. All right. So Justin Ross.
Yeah.
No reason to not believe that a good guy, and he didn't bring a lot of this hype on himself.
No.
And from anybody, I was getting annoyed at it last year because you're putting a guy up on a pedestal that he hadn't necessarily earned yet because of some highlight plays. And the virality and the optimistic nature of Chiefs fans seeing a couple plays, and all fans of every sport. You see a couple highlights and all of a sudden, like, he's going to be the guy. And then the Justin Ross train took off, and some other platforms just put him at this pedestal. We don't need DeAndre Hopkins because we have Justin Ross. How many times have you heard me say that in such an annoying fashion? Because anyone that looked at it reasonably, that it's not a fair thing to put on the guy. But you only get so many years to be the young, intriguing player with an opportunity to step up. And this will be the 3rd year with Justin Ross. This is the kind of the put up or shut up, because it hasn't been his fault. He just goes out there and makes plays. It's everybody else creating this huge buzz about a player that hadn't proved it yet. And it wasn't fair to the player, because then all of a sudden everybody gets down on him. It's like, well, you don't know how close he is with the pads being right to play at that level in a moment that matters. Not just physically showing that he can make crazy catches, and all the talent's there, but talent's there for a lot of guys. It's got to click.
I do think that you mentioned it's the expectations that the fans put on him to come out there and have a 1,000-yard season. Like, look, if that happens, phenomenal. I think that people need to change their expectations about not Kadarius Toney. I was looking at Kadarius Toney. They also need to do that, but also
we'll get there,
right? But about Justin Ross, I think expectations need to be tempered a little bit when it comes to him, and just like as a valuable contributor as a wide receiver, I think that should be like the minimum, right? Like, you think, okay, if he can contribute, look, he had some nice catches last year. He came up in some big plays last year, and I think that's good, and that's what he needs to be. But he's not going to be a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver maybe even 3. So like, you're looking at a guy who's to fill out depth on this wide receiver room that really does need some depth. It's pretty top heavy right now when it comes to the wide receivers there. They need some depth.
And if he's fighting for wide receivers 6 or 7, which legitimately he is, yes, let's play special teams.
Yeah.
It's going to be more special teams for him to make this team or is just going to be on the practice squad. If he's not a special teams guy and has the talent to eventually be like a 2 or a 3, you can keep on the practice squad and just see it click. But how long do you do that for?
Right.
And so I'm not saying they're ready to, like, I have no idea, but just from a young talent perspective, this is the year and the training camp and the time that Justin Ross makes the plays that we've seen, all the buzz starts being created again, but it's got to click at another level.
Yeah.
It's got to click can you be in the right spot at the right time all the time for a team trying to do something that no team in the history of football has ever done.
Right.
And all I can say from being around a little bit is if you wonder why a receiver is not on the field and physically can do everything, it's because they don't understand the offense or they're not going to be where they need to be a high enough percentage of the time for them to feel comfortable with that guy on the field. There's no other reason that a receiver wouldn't be on the field. It's not an easy thing to do in this offense. So speaking of crazy, athletically talented players that need to put up or shut up or take advantage of their opportunity, Kadarius Toney would probably be one of the most frustrating players for like a general manager to have to deal with on a roster. And a lot of people are like, no, just cut him. Well, we know contract-wise, it was going to cost them more to cut him than it was to keep him. Yeah. And if you look at it from a perspective of somebody, even the credentialed beat writers who get to go out and watch him every day, he is different. Like, he moves in a way that no one else moves. And if your job as a GM is to bring in athletes that Andy Reid can put in a position to be successful, he is the perfect person that you are looking for. And when they talk about how he looks at practice and the way that he moves and all of that, you're going to give that guy every single opportunity to play. The fact that he's not here.
Yeah.
Tucker, I'll let you take it from there. But how many more opportunities do you keep giving a guy to stay on a roster? They cut him. It's got to actually, business-wise, it's got to make sense.
Right.
If you're going to cut somebody, you've got to be saving either a roster spot for somebody who's better. At this point, you're going to have 10, 11 receivers going to training camp. There is no reason for him not to be on the roster right now.
Right.
But if he's not here, is that personal? Is it rapping? Like, what is, I don't know. What is the why?
Yeah, no.
Why for like going on here? Because I'm missing something.
I think you could say that really about Kadarius Toney's whole career, right? What is the why when it comes to it? Look, there's a reason that he is still on this team, and there is a reason that there have been 2 NFL teams put up with him, right? He's wildly talented. And it's almost like the Taylor Swift song, I Can Fix Him. No, really, I can. Like, they think that they can fix him. Like, and understandably so. Like, if you watch him move, he is super talented. And like the first game, remember the first game when he played for the Chiefs and he made like those just like 3 just insanely athletic plays. And you're just like, wow, like they
I want to cut out
did it. Yeah.
I don't think it's about fixing him. And I don't think it's about taking what he doesn't do well and trying to hide it. It's how can we take what he does and put him in a position to be successful, throwing the ball at a minimum 4 yards. And last year we saw like that led to some really negative things. But still, you run that play in practice and he moves in a way that no one else moves. And like, well, we'll keep giving him an opportunity. And then he's not here. The part of him not being here is what annoys me at this point. He's got some boring, crazy athletic. Yeah. But
look, hey, you know,
he's not going to be in a better situation anywhere but here.
Absolutely. Nate made this point, and I thought it was very funny. He said we could really put the contract year to the test with this one, because you know Trez says contract year's undefeated.
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you what, if he comes out and has a contract year, I think that would be the story of the NFL season.
Yeah, they would not pay him.
No, they would not.
Be shocked if they pay him. But yeah, Kadarius Toney is one of those ones. I know some fans are like, why is he here? It costs more to cut him, and he's the most athletic player on the team. Like, there's nobody that can do what he does. And when you're a GM trying to find different kinds of athletes to give you a matchup advantage, whatever it is, you find guys like Kadarius Toney, give him every opportunity to go in there and get it done. And speaking of another crazy athlete that I'm excited to see what he can do this year, going into his second year, my namesake, BJ Thompson, the late round edge rusher, tall, skinny, athletic, crazy athlete for his size and length. It was going to be a year or two development. Knew that when he got drafted. It was going to take him a minute. But again, finding players and putting them in a position to be successful. At best, B.J. Thompson, if there's an injury, could have a pass rushing specialist opportunity. We'll see about special teams because he can move for a guy his size. That just because he's defensive end doesn't mean he can't get out there and run down the field and do some of those things. So again, for a guy who's big, tall, long, fast, again, you don't find athletes like that all that often. So I'm excited about what B.J. Thompson can do. Not to tell you right now, but when you get to training camp, he's one of the guys I'm really excited to go up there and watch and say, what can this guy do from year 1 to year 2?
I'm excited to see how much he's grown from year 1 to year 2, because one of the big things, Chris Bober talked about this with Kendall Gammon on Beyond the Game. You guys will hear that on Monday. But he in that conversation, he talked about his first year in the league, he was on the practice squad, and he got to lift 2 times more than any of the active players. He got to work out 2 times more than any of the active players. I wonder how much that's going to impact. And when he was talking about that, I thought, oh, well, B.J. Thompson's one of those guys who was on the practice squad most of the time. How much did that impact him of like getting the proper nutrition, working out twice as much, and getting all of that in the right environment? How much does that help him? How much does that grow him into being a pass rusher? Because look, he was a little bit skinnier. He was a little scrawny guy.
Yeah.
Still a big dude. He needed to put some muscle on. I'm confident that he did. I haven't got to see him. We haven't got eyes on him yet. I'll have to ask Nate Taylor about that, what he thought about B.J. Thompson. But just that aspect of it, of him being able to be in that environment, I'm excited to see how much he's grown, because he was a really smart kid. When we talked to him, it seemed super smart, seemed to get it about everything football-wise. But, yeah, I'm excited to see look, and that's a guy who's a late-round pick, so you're kind of like a lottery pick, I say that in air quotes. But if he can work out and have some time and give some stats for you, like that's a win.
Yeah, and when I say these things, and I always have to add context to guys I get excited about. It doesn't mean I think he's going to line up across from George Karlaftis and be an every down guy.
Yeah.
But if you go back and watch B.J. Thompson's college footage and you watch his 5 best highlights, you'd think he was a top 50 player. The way that he moved and with his size and his length, like granted the competition wasn't as high, but just again, from a GM bringing in big, strong, fluid athletes at that size, you don't find guys that move like he does at his size. So again, if he can get some of the technique stuff, like you said, get a little bigger, stronger, get his hands to be a little bit better, there could be a path for him, and he could be one of those guys during training camp and going into the preseason. That B.J. Thompson will get a ton of snaps in the preseason. He stays healthy and seems to be doing all the things behind the scenes that he should with his coaches, obviously. Stuff that we don't know on the outside, but he's somebody that's going to be excited. And so as we move on to the final 10th thing, we appreciate everybody for hanging out. Please let us know in the comment section if there's any storylines that we didn't mention. Let us know what you think about those, and we'll continue that conversation. Tucker will get in the comments. I'll get in the comments. And interact with you guys on any other storylines that you think would be really good. And if you're listening to the podcast audio and you like what we've got going on at KC Sports Network, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify podcast. People do see those things, and we appreciate the support of everything that we've been doing here. But let's move on to the 10th one. It was originally going to be Carson Steele because I'm just excited to see what that dude. He's just fun to watch. He's going to be the preseason. I don't remember who the running back, I should remember this name, but there was a dude back in like 2011 during Chiefs you weren't born yet, Tuck. There's like a dude in preseason that got like 40 carries in a game and became like a cult favorite for Chiefs fans for like 2 months. Like everybody knew him and it was awesome. Wasn't going to make the team, but like was getting all the carries. It's kind of how I feel like Carson Steele. He just likes to run dudes over. He just runs angry, kind of like a small all-stop. Like that's just not that level, but just kind of that style of just physical run you over. And I got booted with my Carson Steele take because you said there's a lot of buzz about Nico Remigio. Yeah, I'm butchering out Remigio, however you say it. Tell me why fans should be really excited about Nico Remigio as we continue on through OTAs and then into training camp.
Yeah, Shrine Bowl guy in 23. So last year he joined the team as an undrafted free agent. I don't know if we had the opportunity to sit down with him. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's a guy that in training camp last year that a lot of people saw him were like, wow, like he looks like he's got something figured out. Did get hurt, but he was placed on the IR, so he basically got that red shirt year, kind of the same way we were talking about with BJ Thompson there. He's come out here, and Nate Taylor said on Only Weird Games on Thursday that he was making plays on Joshua Williams. Like, he was making it in tight coverage. So he was out there making plays against guys who are playing against the ones. It is T-shirt and shorts, but never.
I just laugh how it's not Josh Williams was bad. It was Nico Remigio was good. It's the thing I loved about training camp. When I worked at the Chiefs, it was like, well, so-and-so got burned. It was like, no, that was a great route. That was, to always stay on the positive side. But yeah, we know Josh Williams is a great athlete. Like, you make a play on Josh Williams for Nico, like, that's exactly what you want to see. And again, gives us something to root for.
Yep.
Really good. Who's the young guy that everybody's going to start rooting for at training camp? Last year, it was Justin Ross. We just created, who's going to be the unfair recipient of all the buzz that there's no possible way they could. They were talking about 1,000-yard season.
Yeah.
Just people. And you're listening, there are people out there creating this hype train, putting unfair, unrealistic expectations on players. We have a responsibility to not do that kind of stuff. There is a very real component to what we all do in this machine that's all created. I'm not doing that, but we'll get off my soapbox.
Oh, I think it's great. Look,
I was a part of it years ago. I did it with Kenny Cook, Mark Harrison, Ross Travis. We've done this before.
Matt Bushman, that's me. That's just
that was you.
Which, hey, happy trails, Matt Bushman. I hope he's enjoying retirement.
Yes, I like when that comes out. I saw you get tagged a few times. The DMs immediately lit up. You were probably texting with the family.
Yeah, I sent Emily a message congratulating him on the career. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, appreciate everybody for hanging out for this episode of 10 Things. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend and appreciate your support of what we're doing here at Casing Sports Network. We just got a fun text with a mock-up of some fun stuff that we've got coming up here that we'll announce sometime in the next 6-ish weeks. So we got some cool stuff coming up. But again, appreciate all your support. Hope you all have a safe and happy weekend. Tuck, do you want to take us home?
See you soon.
Nothing else. I gotta go prepare for softball games, baseball games, basketball games, flag football games.
God bless.
Soccer, gymnastics, literally all those things right now.
Have a good weekend.
All the parents, the young kid doing the same thing as professional chauffeurs at this point in their life. We appreciate you. See y'all later.